Last year was a big exploration into the idea and topic of identity. I wanted to start to explore why is it seems that our generation has so much of a problem with figuring out who we are and with having a sense of self. And I kind of conducted an experiment. So what I ended up doing is I did a deep exploration of myself. You know, Gen Z, we grew up with technology. So from what I understand, I'm at the top end of the Gen Z. I'm pretty sure Gen Z starts like 1997. So I'm at that top end, basically. And you know, social media was introduced to me when I was 11, 10. We had Facebook, we had BBM status updates, and then the smartphones came out and we had Instagram. So for most of my formative years, if not all my formative years, social media played a big role. Throughout our life, there was an increasing integration, I think, of social media in our day to day existence. So when Instagram, Facebook, all these things first came out, we weren't on them 24/7. You didn't have constant content to consume. There was an intentionality to the content that you consumed and to the people that you followed. And there was a finite point in which the content would end. Yeah, as social media evolved, that finite end disappeared. You know, I think with the COVID pandemic, this was all catalyzed, especially with the emergence of TikTok, where the algorithmic sharing of content became very, very popular. And this, I think, has profoundly impacted our ability to form our identity. Because think about it, we receive hundreds of inputs daily about who we should be, what we should think, how we should act. Totally unlike generations prior who had to act with intentionality in choosing their preferences and what they wanted to believe and what they wanted to think. There's no intentionality or action for us, not really. You swipe, you scroll, the algorithm feeds you more videos. 99% of the content that you interact with aren't even people that you follow. It's a very passive way to determine what it is you like. And it doesn't work, right? And I think to make matters worse, receiving so much input when we're still figuring out who we are, when we're in such a significant stage in our identity formation process, right? It's very confusing and it's very overwhelming. I wanted to see if anybody else had studied this, and I found a couple articles, one of which was by this author El Said, and he was talking about the different stages of identity formation in adolescence. Anyways, the idea of the study, right, was he wanted to see how social media and internet presence impacted an adolescent's ability to form their identity. And he talks about how a lot of adolescents would conform their behaviors and beliefs to what is being perpetrated to them on social media without any critical evaluation. And so, if you think about this, if this is how you're forming your identity constantly, then your identity doesn't really exist, does it? If you're constantly conforming who you are based on social media trends. And so, reflecting on this, I realized that half the reason I couldn't figure out who I was because I was taking or spending so much time listening to what other people told me I should be. This is what you should like. This is how you should think. This is how you should act in a relationship. This is how you should treat your friends. This is what you should do with your life. But then, who are these people? You know, it's funny because it wasn't like I was intentionally saying, hey, let me go listen to Bill, Bob, or Joe. It wasn't really like that. It was more mindless scrolling and subconscious influence. I don't think we realize how much our subconscious influences our daily lives and how much mindless scrolling and lack of intentionality in the content we consume can so significantly impact the way we view the world, the way we view ourselves, and everything in between. We think that it's harmless because we're like, oh, whatever, I'm not going to listen to this. But in reality, if you're being fed information and content, your subconscious will remember it. And over time, as your algorithm conforms or refines itself to you, you will see more of the same subliminal messaging that will thus influence the way you view the world. I'll give you a great example. If you're following a bunch of different people that talk about how if you want I don't know, like if you want to be successful in life, you have to wake up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning and meditate and do this and do that and do X and Y and Z. You know, these crazy, very extreme work ethic narratives? If you consistently see those things, even if at first you're like, oh, that's ridiculous, eventually you'll start to view yourself as less than because you do not live this lifestyle that's being perpetrated by someone who has no qualifications to tell you if that lifestyle is healthy for you or not. And I mean, especially for a woman, this 5 a.m. wake up club lifestyle is based on data that's entirely about men. And so, again, we're taking advice from people that, for what? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, right? And so I was thinking about this and I was just thinking about the fact that, like, I went through so many micro phases of who I was too last year, or not last year, the year before, trying to figure out who I was. And I kept falling short because I realized, hindsight 2020, that at that time, basically what I was doing is looking at the algorithm to tell me what to think, to tell me what to do. Not necessarily on a moral level. I will say that on a moral level and a principle level, I feel I'm very strong on those points. But in many, many other ways, definitely feel that I was for sure influenced. I don't think anyone can not be influenced by a constant onslaught of information. It made me realize that although social media can be a very powerful and positive platform and tool, generally speaking, I think social media is honestly the core of our suffering as a generation. I think it's the core of our identity crises as a generation. It's the core of the loneliness epidemic. I think it's also the core of our strong resistance to the norm and to our fight for autonomy. It's very interesting to me because I think our generation fights for autonomy very freely in the corporate world. We have a different idea of work life balance and we stand up for it. And we think, sometimes I think that's maybe what we think will solve the problem, but in actuality, we are a perpetrator of our own suffering. And this is a topic I'll talk about another day. But we play a lot bigger of a role in our own suffering than we'd care to admit. And I think our participation in social media is very much one of those things. Before, there was a lot more intentionality in developing your identity. If you wanted to discover new artists, you'd go to the music store. If you wanted to find a new outfit or a new fashion trend, you had to go to the department store. Not everything was just handed to you. I think there's a good balance of accessibility, but I think we have so much access at this point that it's overwhelming. Whereas before, there was intention into which the media you consumed and what media you were looking for. Before, you'd have to decide, hey, I want to listen to this artist. This is going to date me, but if you remember, you go to the music store and they'd have those headphones and you'd have to stick the CD in there to listen to a few tracks, decide if you like this artist or if you like that album. Now you have your Discover Weekly on Spotify, you have your Apple recommended. Even in these minute ways, our autonomy is slipping away from us. And it doesn't seem very important. It's crazy because it doesn't seem very important in the moment. When you look at them as individual things, it doesn't seem very important. But when all those things come together, a significant portion of our autonomy we are willingly giving away, which is contributing to our lack of identity or our unstable sense of self. And if it wasn't you intentionally going to look for something, you were influenced by your circle. Whereas now, you will hear information and opinions from people that you would never talk to in real life, that you would never cross paths with in real life, that are doing completely different things with their lives than you are, who live a completely different circumstance than you are. And yet we still listen to these things and take them to heart without even verifying them. And it's confusing because before, at least the recommendations of our circle, they would be aligned somewhat with one another. There might be an extreme here or there, but generally they're on a spectrum, a small spectrum. Nowadays, we are hearing information input from everybody, and everybody has something slightly different to say. It's so much input that, especially when you're not strong in your sense of self and you don't have a strong foundation, it's very overwhelming because you don't even know what to believe. This might sound a little enticing and that might sound a little enticing. And maybe for a few months you do one thing and then for a few months you do another thing. And then you ask yourself, who am I? And you have no idea because did you even enjoy any of those things? Or were you just doing it because somebody on the internet told you you should do those things to be happy? I also think that identity is formed through experience. And oftentimes, when we would experience new things or try new things before the era of social media and constant access through smartphones, etc., the internet, right? You would do those things with other people. There was intentionality to doing those things with other people. And in experiencing those things with other people, you would bond with them and foster that feeling of connection that human beings so desperately need. And then your ideas too were also built with that personal community through discourse with that community. And you would read books and people would bring different insights, but it was within your community, not millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people coming across your feed that you know nothing about, really nothing about. There's no reason for you to respect these people, but you take it because they speak with a voice of authority or something. Like even me, this is not an advice podcast. This is a think piece. I just have these thoughts and I want to talk about them. The goal of this is to inspire you to think a little bit critically about your life and then come to your own conclusion on these topics. It's not to say that I know better or worse. So I'm not going to claim to give any advice, and I don't like the idea of people giving advice online because so many people are so susceptible, especially when you're young. Like, I can't imagine if I was 16 when TikTok came out, how much harder it would have been for me to figure out who I am. Another point on then versus now is the illusion of options. I think the illusion of options is single handedly the most detrimental influence in our lives as a society today because on almost every level, we have the illusion of options. Before the age of social media and the internet, there was not the illusion of options. People were a lot more steeped in reality. But nowadays, we have the illusion of options in so many things that we don't know how to make a decision to save our lives. I mean, diets, bajillion different diets. Also, I don't believe in diets, but I digress. Okay. Then, what do you want to wear? Okay, bunch of different aesthetics. Oh, clean girl. Oh, mean girl, grunge girl, bean girl. I don't know. So many options though. I can't keep up. As a general point, there are a lot of options out there in the world. But what options are realistically available to you is a different story entirely. And look, I love a good manifestation. I love, believing in yourself and believing in achieving more. But I think we're a little bit too delulu as a society right now. And it's really detrimenting us because we're not making decisions. People don't settle down into relationships because they want to sleep around, because they want to test their options. But then everyone is so lonely because they can't even take the time to build intimacy with someone else. Sorry if you see my cat, he joined us. The illusion of options in career. Yes, there are many options in career, but realistically, are you going to be the one that's doing stocks? Some people will, like my best friend does that, and she's amazing at it. But it's like, you have to really think, do you want to do stocks? Is that really what you want to do? Okay, whatever. But you have to think about you have to be steeped a little bit in reality that there might be all these options, but not all these options are necessarily available to you, and not all these options are options that you want anyway. And if somebody wasn't yapping in your ear telling you that you want these things, you would have never thought about them or cared for them. But because somebody is telling you that you want these things, now you feel like if you don't want these things, well then there's something wrong with you. No, to be accepted by society, to be this, to be that, I have to want these things. To be worthy, I have to want these. No, dude. You are inherently worthy as a human being through your existence. All you have to be is authentic to yourself. But people don't even understand how to be authentic in this generation because they don't even know who they are. How can you be authentic? Like, this is why I have grace for people, because if you don't know who you are, how can you be authentic? You have a mask on for yourself. The mask never comes off, not even for yourself. So how can I expect another person to take their mask off for me when they can't even see past their own mask? You get me? It's why when I see inauthenticity like this, which is very prevalent, I'm not going to lie, it just makes me sad. I don't really get upset. It just makes me sad because I want people to feel comfortable being who they are. And I'm really grateful that the people in my life or the people that I meet tend to feel comfortable to be themselves around me. But the fact that so many people completely change around others is just a sad thing. Because if you wear a mask for long enough, you're never going to remember what you look like. It's like this quote that I read in fifth grade that I swear burnt itself in my memory. And I reference this poem at least like 6 times a year. But it's a Shel Silverstein poem, and it goes, "She had blue skin, and so did he. He kept it hid, and so did she. They searched for blue their whole life through, then passed right by and never knew." You know, when I read that, it altered my brain chemistry as a kid. It made me realize that if I kept masking who I was, if I kept wearing a mask, I'd never meet the people that would appreciate who I am because they would never be able to recognize me with my mask on. And it's why it makes me so sad to see so many people wearing masks and not being authentic to themselves, because there are people that would appreciate you if you were authentic. But then I also understand that most people don't know how to be authentic with themselves or with others. How can you be authentic with others if you don't know how to be authentic with yourself? If you've been wearing a mask for so long, you forgot what your own face looks like. But anyways, I think I went a little bit off topic there with the illusion of options and wearing a mask, right? But originally, we were talking about the point of developing your identity through your community. And I will say this is a very nuanced point because there is a benefit to the expansion of our input in terms of ideas, right? It is beneficial in a way, obviously, that we have this platform to share and exchange ideas. It helps for more rapid growth. But with every positive, with every light, there is dark. Everything in its inverse, nothing exists in a vacuum. For all the great that this internet has brought, it has also brought negativity in its own right. This is not a topic of is it positive or negative. That is outside of my realm. The point is, these are the ways I've observed it affects us. And once I started realizing that, I became more and more aware of how social media was contributing to my identity crisis and to my feeling of stagnation in my life or of inadequacy in my life. You know, there's also a time tax to social media because, okay, social media might be bombarding us with information, but I was thinking about how come even with that, I still feel I don't have time to explore who I am. Imagine we spend what, 8 to 10 hours doing the necessities of the day, going to work, eating, showering, etc. Most of our generation right now spends 3, 4 hours scrolling social media. If you account for the fact that you're already spending a conservative 10 hours doing the necessities and then 3, 4 hours scrolling, that's 14 hours. What? And then you sleep. And again, it all comes back to the same point, right? Because before social media, we were encouraged more to foster connection with others. So it makes sense that there's this loneliness epidemic because we spent all this time online in fake relationships with people that literally might as well not exist for all intents and purposes in terms of their relativity to your life. And we get this artificial hit of dopamine for connection. And on the topic of parasocial relationships, I think this whole parasocial relationship train has gone off the rails because parasocial relationships I think have become so strong that we as a society are mistaking parasocial relationships for real relationships and thinking that that is adequate enough to fulfill our need for human connection. People nowadays have parasocial relationships with anyone and everyone that they see on the internet. I never got that. Like maybe I admire something that they're working on, or maybe they post aesthetic pictures and I like to watch them. It's not that I don't engage with celebrities. Sure, I engage with their content they post or watch the movies they film, whatever. But at the end of the day, they're just strangers. Like I never understood this because think about it. I always just saw them as people who happen to do a job that puts them in the public eye, but they're just regular old people. So like, why would you take advice from them? What qualifies them to give you advice? They're just regular people that happen to do something creative that puts them in the spotlight. And honestly, so respectfully, so very respectfully, most of these celebrities are not the sharpest tools in the shed. It's like they'd even admit it. Most of these celebrities never wanted to be a role model for anyone. They just wanted to sing or dance or act or whatever it might have been. They didn't want to be a role model. They just wanted to get their bag. We are, as a society, the ones who put that role model title on them. And why? And then this is also nuanced. People will say, well, don't they have a responsibility? Blah, blah, blah. And I don't think so. I really don't think they have a responsibility to be a role model, honestly. Because you know what? I think they have a responsibility not to actively perpetrate harmful or to actively promote others to engage in harmful behavior, but how they choose to conduct their own life, that's their business. Us as a society, us as people, need to employ more critical thinking skills and take celebrities off the pedestal and let them just go live their creative life and mind their business. This tension with this whole thing with the celebrities, I don't get. Why is a celebrity's opinion on what you should do with your life more important than your mom's opinion or your dad's opinion or your sister's opinion or your best friend's opinion? And then and then you have to think about this too. A lot of these people that are on a public platform, they're not concerned about your well being. They don't love you or care about you or want the best for you. What they want the best for is their bank account. What they're thinking about is themselves, which, you know what? Totally fair. Because if we're gullible enough to fall for it, then honestly, it's our fault at that point. Because again, nuance. Like I don't believe in deception or willingly deceiving people. I don't like to lie. I don't like deception. I don't like lying. But am I going to act like this is not what people do? Like it's so obvious. These like how many times does the celebrity have to be caught in a lie or an act for us to realize that most of them, if not all of them, always lie? So why would we believe anything they say? And this is like no disrespect, but it's just that putting putting these random people on a pedestal and having them dictate how you shape your identity and what you like and dislike and how you live your life is doing yourself a disservice because who are these people? This also plays into the idea that we are too selfish as a society nowadays, which is also contributing to our lack of human connection and the loneliness epidemic because everybody is so selfish and nobody wants to do anything for another person. Because what do I owe them? Basic human decency, I would say. But I digress. We'll talk about this topic another time. Additionally, trend culture is killing personal expression. If you think about it, we express ourselves and our identity through so many different forms. One of the greatest parts or one of the biggest parts of expression is what you wear and how you present yourself. And with trend culture, the whole idea of personal expression is dead. So many people succumb to this trend culture where they would have never thought about a product. They would have never thought about something. They would have looked at the product and be like, ugh, not cute. But it becomes viral, it becomes trending, and all of a sudden they're obsessed with it. Like one of the trends that till this day, I'm like, what the? Those shoes that look like a little cow hoof, like it's like split between the toe. I don't believe you for 1 second that anyone found that attractive. Somebody just or maybe they didn't, but very small. I'm just telling you, majority of the people that bought that shoe did not think that shoe was cute independently. If they saw that shoe out in the wild without anyone telling them it was a trend, they would not have bought the shoe. Even physical alterations are becoming a trend and people are buying into it. It's like how are you gonna form your identity if your every move you make is based on a trend? Dude, like what's the point of expressing yourself if you look like everybody else? You know? So many people, even my friends, like one of my best friends, she's beautiful, dude. She's so beautiful and so like one of the prettiest people I know. And she wants a BBL because the internet told her she should get a BBL and she should have a fat ass and she should this and that and that and the other. How are you gonna put yourself through major surgery major surgery just because of a trend. And the crazy thing is, the trend will pass. I mean, the BBL trend is already passing. Remember in the 90s, it was thick skinny, and then it was whatever else it was, and then it's this slim thick, and now it's BBL, and then it's like skinny thick. Dude, even bodies have become a trend. It's wild. And people keep buying into it. So of course, like there's an identity crisis because you don't even recognize a lot of people don't even recognize who they're looking at in the mirror, not by the way their face or body looks, not by the way what they're wearing or the way their room looks. Like nothing really is a personal choice anymore. And obviously, this whole thing is a very general statement. There are unique individuals and there are people that don't fit this scope. But as an average, as a general, I cannot address all the different scenarios. But as a general point, this is how majority of people are with social media and trend culture. And it's really interesting to me because, look, for me, if everybody is into something, if everybody is doing something, by virtue of that, I'm not interested in it. It doesn't mean that necessarily I won't be interested in it eventually, but I feel that it's not as exciting because it's not a unique expression of my personal style or myself, Then I just look like everybody else. I like when I show up with my style. Like, that's me. You can recognize that's her. But everybody looks the same. Like, the other thing that I didn't get, Golden Goose. Golden Goose is actually, I'm sorry, one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Why was this a trend? People were spending hundreds of dollars on these stupid shoes. Look beat up. Just go buy $100 pair of Air Forces and beat them up. And I know there's going to be somebody that says, oh, you just don't get it. No, I just don't get it. And I won't get it even if you explain it. And it's okay because we're entitled to have our own opinions. But I'm just saying, a lot of people too would have thought that was ridiculous until all of a sudden it became a trend. Like if they saw that out in the street without it being a trend online, they'd have been like, who the hell is selling a busted shoe? So, anyways, I feel like a lot of this was just a rant. And I want to talk also about the positives, right? And how we can take back our autonomy. So there are positives to social media. I think if social media is used responsibly, if we have better role models out there to teach the younger generation, my generation too, I'm part of that generation, digital literacy and digital responsibility, learning how to vet their sources, learning how to think critically, using social media in healthy quantity, I think it could be a really positive thing. Whether it can be positive as of yet, I'm not too sure because the type of shift we need to make in terms of social media and societal culture is such a vast and significant shift that I don't think it's something that's going to happen over a year. I think it's something that's going to happen over maybe 3, 4, 5, 7 years as we become fed up and slowly start to shift to more intentional living. That being said, there is a lot of positive to social media too. In the happy corners of the internet, people are thriving. It's just unfortunate that majority of the internet is not like that. And while there are sources and people on social media that help you learn more about yourself, I think the majority of what people consume is brain rot material. And it's material that comes from other people that are just as lost, if not more lost than them, and who have no business or right giving any kind of advice. Like I'll see videos about women in men's fields, and yeah, it's funny. Like it's funny jokes, but there are kids that will take this stuff seriously, and you do not want to compromise your moral character and go and cheat on someone or do someone dirty just for the plot or to be cool or because you want to do him dirty like a man. You're not doing anyone a disservice but yourself by degrading your moral character by acting in a way that isn't in accordance with what you believe and the type of person you want to be, just because this is what people tell you online is good to do. Or all this toxic, oh, text him this or don't text them that or do this or this is how you're going to make them stay. Listen, if I have to act in a way to make you stay, go. Go. If I have to play games and manipulate, go. And this is how we have to think. But people don't think critically. So this is the problem. Like, there's like someone whose baby daddy, respectfully, has three baby daddies, two of which of them are in jail. And they're like, oh, if you want your man back, go, like, stalk his house, break into his car or like find the girl and do. No, don't do any of that. If you ever have to do something that compromises your moral character, you've stayed too long. You got to get out. No one worth anything will ever make you feel the urge to do such a thing and will never inspire such negative qualities in your character. The second someone inspires negative qualities in your character, know they're not the right person for you. Or people who will say, oh my God, I want, to live this glitz glam life and everybody's talking about OnlyFans and blah, blah, blah. And like, girls, I see videos of girls like before they even turn 18, oh my God, I can't wait to turn 18 so I can start OnlyFans. And it makes me so sad because, again, social media perpetuates this idea of like glitz and glamour lifestyle. And so many people want to get rich quick scheme, especially if they didn't grow up with financial security. And so they don't they don't realize what a detrimental decision that they're making. And that it's not one that you can take back. Like I wish young girls nowadays would listen to the older porn stars that have already retired from this industry, not the girls who are trying to promote it right now, who are active in it. Of course, the girls who are active in it are going to have to say they love it and it's so fun and enjoyable because the people that are consuming that disgusting respect. No, actually, I'm sorry. I have a stand on this, and that's disgusting. The disgusting content is they don't want her to be like, oh my God, I don't like it and they're gross. No, she's not gonna get her bag if she says that. But if you ask the ones who are no longer in the industry, every single one of them will say it's the biggest regret they made in their life. And it's just so sad to me because we've gotten so lazy as a society and we see all these people online getting rich quick and we think, oh, a lot of people will think, oh, it's not a big deal, but once I have that money, like I'll be fine, I'll be set for life. I won't need anyone to respect me. No, because you've never handled that much money before. You won't know what to do with it. Money will go and you will have to live with yourself. Even if you have the money, you will have to live with yourself. You'll have to live with yourself and all that you did and all that you exposed of yourself and constantly telling yourself that you're so unworthy that you have to sell your body like you're a cheap animal, you know? And act like you love it. Just because you want to buy a Birkin bag, babe, you don't need the Birkin bag. You don't need to travel right now. Like, oh my God, because of influencers, we see people like traveling. Oh, I'm 17, I'm traveling. Oh, okay, but these aren't real people. These are people in very specific circumstances. Like, you can have all those beautiful experiences. Why are you in a rush? If you need to compromise your moral integrity and compromise your self respect and your identity and your self worth to do something, then you're not supposed to do it yet. Because I can guarantee you, everyone is capable and has the ability to make a successful life for themselves if they're willing to put in the work. But most people nowadays are more willing to work and sell their body than they are to work and sell their mind. Because that's the easy way out that is perpetrated by social media. And the people on social media make it seem like it's this glitzy glamour life. Oh my God, I can go on a tangent about that. But I guess my point is that there are all these trends and all these people telling you what to do with your life. And it's killing the idea of personal expression and personal discovery. Like me starting this podcast wasn't, I've had this podcast idea in my mind for 5 years. I didn't want to start it at first because I didn't want to put myself on a public platform where I have to talk to people or people have to know me. I'm private. I like my life private. But this idea nagged in my head for 5 years that I finally bit the bullet and said, this is my time to try it. But it wasn't like this is what society is saying, like, oh, let's everybody become a podcaster. Dude, if I wanted to do something else, I would have done something else. I swear to God. But I was also doing myself an injustice by not doing the thing that I felt called to do. Even though it's very hard for me to digest the fact that what I want to do puts me on a public platform where privacy is much harder to maintain. Anyways, trend culture is also killing our personal expression, which I think is also contributing to the identity crisis, and the lack of autonomy our generation feels. I think it also very much so impacts how we feel and it plays a role in the loneliness epidemic. And this is why. Hear me out. Because now all of this input that you're getting is from your phone. Scroll, scroll, somebody tell you this, somebody tell you that. And you know when you weren't scrolling, who was telling you that? Your friends. You would go out and have coffee with your friends. You'd go over to their house. You would see your family and you'd have these discussions. And this is how these topics would come about through human connection, not through scrolling and watching strangers who have no business telling you what to do, tell you what to do. I think the final point I'd like to make on this topic is that not all hope is lost. I know I said some pretty intense things and it sounded maybe wild that this is the life we live in, and maybe the reality check hit pretty hard. My friends say that all the time. But I swear there is hope. It's just that we can't move forward until we're aware. And so it's important to just have these discussions and think about these things, because the more aware we become of how we're actually living as puppets in this system, the faster we'll be able to collectively shift into a better way of living. And once we can identify the root causes of our lack of identity as a generation, of our loneliness as a generation, of our suffering as a generation, then we can move forward. Because let me tell you one thing. I do not agree with the fact that older generations say we are lazy or this or that or the other. Like, I think that's messed up. We've just been bombarded with so much information about who we should be and what we should think and how the world is going to end. Every day, how the world is going to end, turmoil this, turmoil that. We're exhausted. We're exhausted and overstimulated, and we just need to figure out how to move forward. But that requires us as a society to start critically thinking a little more, start reflecting on our lives a little more, start developing our identity. I started with the question, what are my morals and principles? Who am I as a person? How do I want to show up in this world? I started on the broad spiritual sense. This is the foundation of who I am and how I'd like to show up. These are the values and principles that guide me in my day to day life: integrity, respect, compassion, accountability, empathy, etc. Then I ask myself, how do I want to present myself to the world? What feels most authentic to me? Do I enjoy having blonde hair? Do I enjoy having brunette hair? Do I enjoy doing makeup, not doing makeup? How do I enjoy doing my nails? What kind of clothes do I enjoy wearing? And these are answers that you get right away. This is answers that you get through trial and error. When it came to hobbies, hobbies are very important for you to feel fulfilled. Make sure you have hobbies. The one of the things that grounded me the most in this journey to figuring out my identity is having hobbies. I used to paint all the time in high school. Had stopped painting. I started painting again. I used to love excuse me. I used to love junk journaling, but I never did it. I used to like look at the pictures on Pinterest all through high school. I was like, honestly, why not do it now? Like, why not? So I started junk journaling. I write poetry, but it's not good. So I never really wanted to like write poetry. I just started writing it. It sounds cringe to say, like I still have that internalized like embarrassment, but I'm gonna still write poetry because you know what? I read recently a quote that was like, "You call yourself amateur like it's a insult, but the word amateur comes from the Latin root to do out of love. And so if you do something out of love, how can that ever be a negative thing?" I think there are many ways to explore your identity, but I do encourage you to explore those things offline. Explore them with your friends, explore them with your family, explore them with yourself. It doesn't mean that you cannot look for sources, because there is an importance to having good sources and expanding your views. But just make sure that they're right sources. Read books. Books have to go through so much vetting before they get published. Consult people that you respect. Be very selective of the advice you take online. And really, please use your critical thinking skills and look at the credentials of the person. If you're going to look at a trend, really ask yourself, do I like this thing, or do I just like that everybody else likes it? And if I have it, I'll seem like I'm cool and I'm in, and then I won't feel so awkward. Because I feel most people buy into trends for that reason. But I think once we let go of the need to conform and to be a part of what everybody else is doing, that's actually when that feeling of insecurity and instability disappears. Because guess what? When you buy all those trendy items, do you feel cool? Maybe for 5 minutes, but you're just as lost 5 minutes later. Whereas if you do things for your own personal enjoyment and experience and expression, if you do things without the thought of what other people will think or what other people are thinking, and allowing that to influence your thoughts on what you should think and like, you'll just live a much better life. Just let that ish go, dude. Until you're able to let go of the opinions of others and the thoughts of others and realize that other people can have unique thoughts and they can have their likes and dislikes and they can have their beliefs and they don't have to be the same as yours. And that just because you think someone is cool and they happen to like something doesn't mean you have to like that same thing or you're not cool. Many different people can be very cool for many different reasons and can have different beliefs and different thoughts. And you know what? All that matters is that you're cool to you. Because everybody else's definition of cool is so fickle and blows in and out of the wind like no other. You never know which way it's going to go. But your definition of cool, that's forever. That's with you. That's something you can control. At the end of the day, I always say this, and I'll leave you with this last line. There's no point in impressing everybody else if you can't even impress yourself. There's no point in living for everybody else if you can't even live yourself. Anyways, I don't really have an outro, so I'll just say peace out. Have a good day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know what your thoughts are. I hope this was helpful. It was good talking to you. All right. Bye.